Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Miswired podcast. I'm Selena Buongiorno, a neuroscience PA, MS researcher, and a patient living with multiple sclerosis. In today's episode, I want to break down the basics of what MS really is. Whether you're newly diagnosed, supporting someone you love, or just curious, this episode is for you. I want to talk about the science in simple terms, bust myths, and shine light on what it really means to live with an invisible illness like multiple sclerosis. When I was first diagnosed, I had no idea how complex and misunderstood MS really was, despite being a medical professional. So now I'm on a mission to help others learn what I wish I knew back then. It is estimated that 1 million people are living with multiple sclerosis in the United States and over 2.8 million people globally. MS is 3 times more common in women, and it is most often diagnosed between the ages of 20 and 50, but really can be diagnosed at any age. Personally, I was diagnosed at age 35. Multiple sclerosis is an unpredictable chronic disease of the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord. It occurs when the immune system mistakenly attacks the myelin sheath, which is a protective covering that surrounds the nerve fibers. The damage disrupts the communication between the brain and the rest of the body, leading to a wide range of symptoms. These symptoms can vary greatly depending on the location and the extent of the nerve damage. They may come and go, relapse and remission, or they may progress steadily depending on the type of MS the patient has. There are several different types of symptoms. MS has a variety of neurological symptoms, which typically are the most common. Numbness or tingling is often seen in the arms, face, or legs. My first symptoms in 2020 involved both of my hands going numb, as well as my right foot. Muscle weakness or spasms is also another common symptom that we see. I deal with muscle spasms a lot, so I use heat, stretching, and muscle relaxers to help my symptoms. I also work on resistance training to strengthen my muscles. Poor coordination or balance problems, which can lead to falls, is also an issue with multiple sclerosis. Personally, I try to work on my core strength and balance exercise daily to help prevent this in the future. Patients also suffer from tremors, vertigo, dizziness. Looking back, I had had several episodes of dizziness a few months before my numbness started. I was diagnosed with vertigo, but again, we really didn't expect MS because I had no family history and it wasn't even on my radar. Vision problems is also common, and it's one of the most common ways people find they have MS. Blurred vision, double vision, partial or complete loss of vision, often in one eye at a time, or pain during eye movements, which is optic neuritis, and like I said before, a very common way people find their MS. Fatigue is another one. It's common and often debilitating, not always necessarily related to physical activity. Cognitive and emotional changes are also seen a lot, as well as memory problems, difficulty concentrating, depression, mood swings, difficulty with speech and swallowing, such as slurred speech, bladder, bowel issues, urinary urgency, frequency or incontinence, as well as constipation and sexual dysfunction. There are so many different MS symptoms, which truly make this disease more difficult to diagnose just because there's such a variety of things that you can be looking for. There are several key factors about MS. First of all, MS is autoimmune, meaning the body attacks itself. Personally, I think that's why people with MS are so strong, because if you think about it, we're the only ones strong enough to kick our own butts. With MS, the immune system eats away at the protective covering of the nerves, like we talked about before, called the myelin sheath, which results in a disruption of the communication between the brain and the body. One of the best analogies I have heard is relating it to a phone charging cable that your dog chewed. From the outside, it looks like it won't work well because some of the wires are now frayed and exposed. Ultimately, it might not work well all of the time, but sometimes it will charge your phone. MS is progressive. It can worsen over time, though the course does vary widely between individuals. That's why a lot of people refer to it as a snowflake disease. No two people are the same. No two disease courses are alike. There is no known cure for multiple sclerosis, but the treatments can manage and slow the progression of the disease. There are also several types of MS. There are 4 main types that we think of. They are relapsing remitting MS, secondary progressive MS, primary progressive MS, and clinically isolated syndrome. The first type is the most common form. That's the type I have. It's relapsing remitting MS. Relapsing remitting MS is defined as periods of flare-ups followed by recovery. An MS flare, you'll hear that term a lot. It's also known as a relapse or an exacerbation, and it's usually defined as new or worsening neurological symptoms in a person with MS that appear suddenly and last for 24 hours. But it's important to note that they can't have any other explainable cause, such as fever or infection. because sometimes if you have a cause, it can be called a pseudoflare. But as always, if you think you're experiencing a flare or a relapse, you need to contact your doctor right away to determine the best course of action for you, because your doctor knows you best. Secondary progressive multiple sclerosis is the next type I wanted to discuss. It develops from relapsing remitting MS, and it's characterized by a gradual worsening of disability and neurologic dysfunction over time, and it's unlikely to involve relapses where the symptoms worsen and then improve. The rate of conversion varies widely, and the speed of progression, of course, is different for every patient. Primary progressive MS is another form of MS. That one's defined as steady worsening from the start without clear relapses. Clinically isolated syndrome, that's a little different than the other types. That one, you have the first episode of neurological symptoms that suggests MS, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the person will ever develop MS. Making a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis is very complex. Early diagnosis is key because it enables the person to get the treatment quicker, which has been shown to lead for better outcomes since it slows disability progression. MS is not diagnosed with a single test. It requires ruling out other conditions and looking for specific pattern of damage in the central nervous system. We use a variety of diagnostic tools to diagnose MS. The most common one that you've probably heard about is MRI. MRI is used to detect lesions, as we refer to areas of damage in the brain or spinal cord. This is often one of the most important tests in diagnosis. Lumbar puncture or spinal tap is another way to diagnose MS. It examines cerebrospinal fluid for immune system proteins. Usually we're looking for a variety of them, such as illegal clonal bands and other things that are suggestive of MS. Evoked potentials tests can measure electrical activity in the brain in response to stimuli, and what we're looking for there is slowed nerve signals. Blood tests are also used, but usually it's a diagnosis of exclusion. So we're trying to rule out other diseases, such as Lyme disease, vitamin deficiencies, or other things in the blood that we can see that might be able to explain the symptoms. MS has several diagnostic criteria, known as the McDonald criteria. They were recently updated in 2024 to help providers be able to identify MS sooner. The criteria is looking for evidence of damage to the central nervous system. That is what we call disseminated in time and space. So basically it's looking for damage at different dates, as well as different parts of the brain and spinal cord. Some people have lesions only in the brain, but some people like me have it in the brain and the spinal cord. So when they're separated by time, so different areas of inflammation, different times, and then also different areas, it makes it easier to diagnose.
Like we said before, there's no cure for MS, but there are several treatment options available. And the treatments aim to do several things. They slow disease progression, manage symptoms, and reduce the severity and frequency of relapses. We've come a long way with research in regard to treatments. Prior to 1993, we really didn't have any treatments that actually alter the course of the disease. Now we have over 20 FDA-approved disease-modifying therapies, also known as DMTs, which are meant to reduce the activity of the immune system and slow the progression of the disease. By turning off parts of the immune system, it won't mistakenly attack itself. As a result, the patient can become immunocompromised and get sick easier, which can certainly be challenging at times, especially directly after treatment, since sometimes the treatments involve giving a steroid as well, which can further weaken the immune system. The DMTs that we have available include oral medications, injectables, and infusions. Personally, I get an infusion every 6 months. Research has come a long way, though, over the years. Currently, we're working on a medication that targets multiple aspects of the disease, both the neurodegenerative component as well as the inflammation in one medication, which could completely change how we treat this illness. If anyone is in need of NMS treatment, research is a great option, especially for patients without insurance. You can actually go to clinicaltrials.gov to look for clinical research sites in your area. And if you're local to West Palm Beach, Florida, you can always come to our site, which is Premier Research Institute at Palm Beach Neurology. Other hot topics in research currently are BTK inhibitors and other therapies involving remyelination and neurorepair. To fully treat multiple sclerosis, it's really a multifactorial approach. There's disease-modifying therapies, like we talked about, DMTs, which currently there's over 20 of them. And like we said, the goal of those is to just reduce relapse rate and also slow progression. Also, relapse management, which is typically done with corticosteroids like methylprednisolone, basically just to reduce inflammation and shorten relapses if they should occur. Usually we use muscle relaxers. You can use antidepressants to help with any depression or mood changes. Also, rehabilitation can help as well. There's physical therapy to help with mobility and balance, occupational therapy, as well as speech therapy. MS is a lifelong condition, but many people with the right treatment are able to lead full and active lives with it. It can also take a toll on mental and emotional health, so depression and anxiety are commonly seen, but counseling, support group, and sometimes medications can help. MS can also affect self-image and relationships, so social support is important too. There are a lot of support groups in the area, both virtually and in person, if people are interested in those. Lifestyle and self-care is important too. Regular exercise can improve strength, fatigue, and mood. And healthy diet is important as well. As there's no specific MS diet, mostly an anti-inflammatory diet such as the Mediterranean diet definitely is helpful. Adequate sleep is also essential. It's crucial for managing the fatigue that's often associated with MS. Stress management is also essential because stress can trigger or worsen symptoms, which I have seen firsthand. Mobility and independence can also be an issue with MS, so a lot of patients use canes, walkers, scooters as needed. Home modifications can be important too, anything that we can do to reduce risk of falls, such as grab bars, ramps, things like that, just to maintain safety and independence. And like we said before, support is also important, so you can connect with MS communities, such as with the National MS Society and other things in the area. MS is unpredictable, which I think is the hardest part for me personally to deal with. I've always been a planner. I like to know what's next, and with this disease, it has a mind of its own. I'm slowly learning to live with it and try to take things one day at a time, which is a constant work in progress for me. Some people can live decades with mild symptoms, while others experience more rapid progression. Ongoing care with a neurologist specializing in MS is crucial for managing the disease long term. Other interesting facts about MS that people often misunderstand: MS is not contagious or directly inherited, although genetics and environmental factors can play a role. MS is not terminal. Patients can live long, full lives with the right care and support. One of the most misunderstood things about MS is that it's often an invisible illness, since many symptoms, such as fatigue, pain, brain fog, numbness, they can't be seen from the outside, but they affect daily life in very real ways. People will often say to me, "Well, you don't look sick." So I think it's important to remember that not all disabilities are visible, so be kind. You never know the battle someone's fighting. Many people are struggling with symptoms that no one else can see and fighting a battle within. I know there are days when my nerves are on fire, but I always make sure to have a smile on my face. Some people describe the fatigue associated with MS as if they're walking through wet cement. Since MS is a disease of the nervous system, the nerves don't always broadcast pain with visible signs. Many people think that all people with MS will end up in a wheelchair, but that is not true. It's important to remember there are different types of MS, which we discussed earlier, and with early, effective treatment and lifestyle support, it is not always the case. That is why I think raising awareness for multiple sclerosis is so important. Not just for those of us living with MS, but also for our families, coworkers, and the community. When we understand that not all disabilities are visible, we start to become more compassionate and supportive. Curing MS will certainly take a village, and the more people we can get to join our fight, the better. Thank you for listening, and I hope you're walking away with a better understanding of what multiple sclerosis is, and more importantly, what it isn't. It isn't always visible. It isn't always predictable, but it can be manageable, and there is hope. Living with MS can be tough, but it doesn't define who we are. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share. It helps more people learn, connect, and feel less alone. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, or YouTube. As always, this is not medical advice, just real talk from someone who lives and works with MS every day. Make sure to talk with your doctor regarding medical advice, since they know you best.